Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by Shane Connuck. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thank you for having me.
Just kind of introduce yourself and kind of tell everybody what you do.
Yeah, I'm Shane Connuck. I'm a senior at the University of Maryland. I am a journalism major. I'm a play-by-play broadcaster for Big Ten Plus, call pretty much every Maryland sport. I am a high school sports reporter for the Washington Post. So I write about different sports in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and those high schools. And I do a lot of TV reporting stuff as well. Last summer, I worked for the Northwoods League in Minnesota, and I hosted TV shows for the Collegiate Summer Baseball League. So I have a lot of experience, a lot of different sports, big sports fan. I'm from Randolph, New Jersey, big Mets fan, certain New York teams.
All right,
And
there we go.
yeah.
What else? What else are you a fan of? Like, yeah, I know Mets and what else?
Mets, Jets, Nets, and Islanders, and of course the Terps.
All right.
Could be rough.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. So let's how'd you get in? How'd you want to do why do you want to do this? Like, how'd you get into it?
So ever since I was a little kid, I always loved sports. I always loved to talk. And in school, I was like, all right with writing. I didn't hate it. And so I was like, well, if people cover sports, I'm like, I know I'm not a good enough baseball player to do anything or a good enough basketball player to ever do anything. But I found myself really into, even just watching sports and following the Mets and following certain teams. And I was just really into sports and I love to talk all that. So I kind of saw broadcasting as a potential way to combine those interests. And while I was in high school at Randolph High School, we didn't have any kind of TV station or radio station or anything like that. And I kind of, throughout my time there, started to come up with ways to announce games and come up with ways to write articles for a local website. And then that ended up actually creating some avenues and some opportunities that are now still in existence at Randolph High School. And now there have been students since me who have done those things and gone on to study journalism and communications in college and all that. And then I came here to Maryland knowing I wanted to go to a big state school and really, continue to announce games, continue to write articles, continue to be around, that whole kind of sports scene. And that's exactly what I've done here at Maryland, not even just on campus. Obviously, it's a Big Ten school with plenty of opportunity, and I've had my hand in almost everything there, from broadcasting to writing to even media relations and being on the athletic department side of it in different roles. And now even in the DC area, I've covered field hockey, wrestling, and now boys lacrosse, which is arguably the biggest sport in the DC area. So it's been just a really cool experience.
Yeah. So let's just talk about what are some of the best, one of the sports that you've been able to call during your time.
Yeah, so I've fortunately, like I said, had the opportunity to call pretty much every sport at some point. But the game that always is going to come to mind is last year I was calling a baseball game, and I've always been a particularly big baseball guy, always following the Mets my whole life and just always loved baseball. So I've gotten involved doing a lot with Maryland baseball when I can. Obviously, I have a lot of other stuff going on all the time. And so last year I was announcing a Maryland baseball game against Georgetown, and it was a back and forth midweek game. And obviously Georgetown, a local kind of rival, whatever. So it's exciting. And Maryland's down 9-8 in the bottom of the ninth, and Matt Shaw, one of their best hitters at the plate. And I just think to myself, there's a runner on base. It's the ninth inning. Nothing's really happened. Nothing really seemed like, but what if Matt Shaw just hits a 2-run walk-off right now? And the next pitch, it's a high fly ball to deep right field. And as I'm announcing it, my voice just cracks as I'm like, it's so yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. So let's talk about just all the stuff that you've been able to do. Being just a normal everyday reporter for one of the top papers in the world. What's that been like in just going to different high school events out there? And obviously, this time of the year, I know lacrosse is pretty big.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's been really cool, and it's been a really good experience, and it's not lost on me, even knowing what the Washington Post is. And even though, I'm covering high school sports or whatever, it's, still, even though it's been over a year now, I still often go pick up the print edition when I'm in print. It definitely isn't lost to me that I'm writing for a publication like that, no matter what I'm doing. But it's been a really good experience also because journalistically, there are reasons why the Washington Post is, has the readership that it does. And there's also then, the other side, there's that kind of pressure. People don't need to read an article to see, oh, the blow by blow of a, field hockey game between Winston Churchill and Walt Whitman. People want to, people who want to know the score are going to know the score. So there's a lot more kind of pressure on, or not pressure, but emphasis on really telling a story. And so that's something that I think gotten really good with and has really helped me a lot just as any kind of a reporter, because you can't just go online and look at the live stats and then be able to write your article. Like everything you're doing is finding stuff out on your own with the high schools. And then also, like I said, you don't just need to find all that out about the game. You want to really be finding a story. And so it's and getting to cover different sports has also been pretty cool because obviously, field hockey, lacrosse, certain sports, you have a winner and a loser, you have points, a certain number of goals that are scored. Whereas in wrestling, it's just a lot different. And I think that, having that experience was really interesting. I knew nothing about wrestling or field hockey or so many of these sports that I've now covered extensively. And not only just covering them, like you can, go through the motions and, a lot of people get experience covering different sports and whatever, but like I've now covered wrestling at Maryland with the Terps in different ways. And then I've covered the high schools for 2 whole seasons. And I feel like a lot of that experience has just been really, really valuable. And now in the spring with lacrosse, obviously such a high level sport in this area, which, and personally, like I'm not as like I'm a little bit more into the broadcasting stuff than all the writing stuff. And so because of that, a lot of times, I'm more interested a lot of times I find in the games, themselves than let's say, a great story sometimes. But because of that, I found that doing this work with the Post has allowed me to, really, for example, like I don't have a rooting interest at all in a high school wrestling meet. So I'm more focused on that story. And now covering a sport like lacrosse, it allows you to talk more about the games because they're important, and then finding that extra layer of a story.
Okay, so you're at Maryland. Obviously,
Yeah.
they had a pretty big announcement a few days ago. What do you think about the classic look coming back?
I love it. I love the Terp script. Yeah. Now, since I got here freshman year, that was Coach Loxley's first year.
Yeah.
And they brought out, they were going to wear the Terp script like for the homecoming game. And I'm like, why are they making this massive announcement? Because one game they're going to wear the Terp script uniforms. I'm like, that's a way better look than the current uniforms. I'm like, I like the flag uniforms. Like they're nice. They're cool. It's good. They want to, infuse the flag into everything. But like, I just thought that Terp script was a great look. And now they've worn it like twice every year. And I'm like, can they just make this thing permanent already? So very, very cool to see them, finally do that. Obviously Loxley, really wanted that to happen. And yeah, no, I think we're all very excited about it.
Yeah, it's yeah, we'll just have to see because I've always since Maryland's joined the Big Ten, it's always been fun to see them and watch them. So but anyway, just what like I know you're a senior. Can you believe that you're a senior and almost ready to graduate and go on? And what are your plans for post college?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's also particularly weird with my class because of COVID, coming through in the middle of it and like having our freshman year be completely normal. And, all of a sudden then in March, we go home for spring break and that turns into being home for the rest of the semester. And then sophomore year is just completely online and bizarre because of COVID. And then the next thing you know, junior year, we're pretty much, back to mostly normal, and we're already the juniors. And now it's just been basically 2 years on the back end of post, so it's been a long ride, but I feel like I've really made the most of every moment for that reason. Now beyond that, I'm still figuring out exactly what I'm going to do because now, I do a lot on the writing side. I do a lot on the TV side. I do a lot of play-by-play. Like, I'm also figuring out exactly which of those directions I kind of want to follow more. So I'm applying to, a range of jobs now as I'm starting to think about that. And also I'm covering boys lacrosse through like June. So that'll go beyond when we graduate anyway. So I kind of, been pretty focused on that right now anyway as well.
So, what's been the biggest thing what have you got coming up these next few months?
Yeah, so obviously I got lacrosse now for, the next till June or so. Continuing to call games at Maryland till I graduate. Calling softball games, baseball, called a women's lacrosse game a little while ago, just hanging around. Um, yeah, but honestly, really just enjoying these last couple of months in College Park. I mean, obviously, last time, being a college student, all that. So a lot of that, but I'm also constantly busy. I'm covering, at least one or two lacrosse games every week at the high schools and on top of going to games at, on campus at Maryland. So, as always, as it's been the last 4 years, a lot going on, but really trying to, also just enjoy, the last couple of weeks at Maryland.
All right. Yeah, and just what specific I know I asked you this, but what would Shane really prefer doing if he got to pick what he wanted to do?
I would say it would be play-by-play broadcasting. That was my first interest. That's always been my kind of favorite thing to do. I think that something I just realized is that it's harder to find play-by-play opportunities. And a lot of times the opportunities there are, wouldn't even be available right when you're graduating because a lot of them are in minor league baseball, which, starts in the spring. So, but I'd say if a perfect world, Shane Connuck, I would want to be doing play by play of I'd say baseball, but just because that's always kind of been my favorite sport, and also it's a cool sport I think to announce because you can really paint a picture as a broadcaster, contrary to some other sports. So I would say being a baseball play by play guy.
All right. Well, Shane, thanks so much for coming on, man, and talking with us. And best of luck in your broadcasting career. We'll definitely have you on again sometime.
Hey, thank you. Really appreciate you having me. Great to meet you, and go Terps.